Let's discuss the bladder channel points overview, part 2. Specific points according to the channel pathway in numerical order. Bladder 1, Yahweh meeting point with the stomach, triple burner channel, and Yin Chao Mai, Yang Chao Mai, small intestine, gallbladder channels, Dumai, local point for the eyes. Okay. Bladder 2 is for the adjacent point for the eyes. Bladder 7 for adjacent point for the nose. Bladder 10, window of heaven point, important point for eliminating wind, local point for the occiput and cervical spine. Bladder 11, the way meeting point of the bones, sea of blood point, Yahweh meeting point with small intestine channel, triple burner, gallbladder channel, Dumai. Adjacent point for the cervical spine. Bladder 12, Yahweh meeting point with Dumai. Bladder 13, Bakshu point of the lung, adjacent point for the lungs. Bladder 14 is the Bakshu point of the pericardium, adjacent point for the heart. Bladder 15 is the Bakshu point of the heart, adjacent point for the heart. Bladder 16 is the Bakshu point of Dumai. Bladder 17, the Bakshu point of the diaphragm, way meeting point of the blood. Bladder 17 to bladder 23, local points for the thoracic spine. Bladder 18 is the Bakshu point of the liver, adjacent point for the liver. Bladder 19, Bakshu point of the gallbladder, adjacent point for the gallbladder. Bladder 20 is the Bakshu point of the spleen, adjacent point for the liver. Bladder 21, local point for the stomach, Bakshu point of the stomach. Bladder 22 is the Bakshu point of the triple burner. Bladder 23 is the Yahweh meeting point for the Dumai, local point for the kidneys and lumbar region, adjacent point for the bladder, urogenital region and iliosacral region, Bakshu point of the kidney. Bladder 24, local point for the lumbar spine. Bladder 25, Bakshu point of the large intestine, adjacent point for the lumbar spine. Bladder 26 is the local point for the lumbar spine. Bladder 27, Bakshu point of the small intestine, adjacent point for the small intestine, local point for the iliosacral region. Bladder 28 is the Bakshu point of the bladder, adjacent point for the bladder, local point for the iliosacral region. Bladder 30 is the regional point for the rectum. Bladder 31, bladder 34. Yahweh meeting points for the GB channel. Bladder 32, regional point for the urogenital region, local point for the iliosacral region. Bladder 34, regional point for the rectum. Bladder 35, local point for the rectum. Bladder 38 to bladder 47, adjacent points for the thoracic spine. Bladder 39, lower Hussey point for the triple burner. Bladder 40, Hussey point, earth, lower Hussey point for the bladder. Gao-Wu-Kman point of the back and lumbar region. Ma-Dan-Yang heavenly star point, distal point for the thoracic and lumbar spine, as well as for the iliosacral region. Local point for the knee. Bladder 41, Yahweh meeting point for the small intestine channel. Bladder 43, adjacent point for the lungs. Bladder 49, local point for the hip. Bladder 50, local point for the hip. Bladder 52, local point for the lumbar region. Bladder 54, local point for the hip. Bladder 57, Ma-Dan-Yang heavenly star point. Distal point for the rectum, distal point for the thoracic spine. Bladder 58, Luo connecting point, distal point for the shoulder and iliosacral region. Bladder 59, C-cleft point of the Yang Chao Mai, Yahweh meeting point with the Yang Chao Mai, distal point for the lumbar spine. Bladder 60, Jing River point, fire. Madanyang heavenly star point, distal point for the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar spine, distal point for the occipital and lumbar region, local point for the foot, regional point for the toes. Bladder 61 is Yao Wei meeting point for the Yang Chiao Mai. Bladder 62, opening point for the Yang Chiao Mai, Sun Si Miao Ghost Point, Yao Wei meeting point for the Yang Chiao Mai, local point for the kidney, local point for the foot, distal point for the lumbar spine and hip. Bladder 63, Shi Cleft Point, Yao Wei meeting point for the Yang Wei Mai, bladder 64, Yuan source point, bladder 65, shoestring point wood, sedation point, distal point for the occiput, adjacent point for the toes. Bladder 66, Ying spring point, water, bend point, 5 paces point. Bladder 67, Jingwell point, tonification point. General location, health. The medial branch of the bladder channel runs from bladder 11 below the spinal process of the T1 to bladder 30 level with the fourth sacral foramen 1.5 june lateral to the midline. Memorization help for the medial branch of the bladder channel. Bladder 11 to bladder 17, the second digit of the point number corresponds to the level of the respective thoracic vertebra. For example, bladder 13 is located below the spinal process of T3. Bladder 18 to bladder 21, second digit of the point number +1. For example, bladder 19, 9 plus 1 is located below the spinal process of T10. The outer branch of the bladder channel runs from bladder 41 below the spinal process of the T2 to bladder 54 below the spinal process of S4 level with the fourth sacral foramen 3 june lateral to the midline. Memorization help for the lateral branch of the bladder channel. Bladder 41 to bladder 46, second digit of the point number +1. For example, bladder 42, 2 plus 1 corresponds to T3. Bladder 47 to bladder 49, second digit of the point number +2. For example, bladder 47, 7 plus 2 corresponds to the level of T9. Bladder 50, second digit of the point number +12. So needling, the Bakshu points are also commonly needled transversely, subcutaneously towards the spine. This allows the patient to lie in a supine position during needle retention. The needles can be secured with tape.